Hi, friends. This is Chris Prendergast back again with another Google Analytics 4 tip for y'all. We're going to be looking at page view parameters today. Basically, what is some extra data that we want to send to Google Analytics when people view certain pages on our website? So right now, when somebody goes to your site and you've got GA4 installed, you can see, okay, what was the page title up here at the top? What was the URL? But what if there's other data on that page that would be really helpful for us to capture? In our previous video about content groups, that is technically a page view parameter that we learned how to track. But now we're going to learn how to track things that are on the page itself through some magic of Google Tag Manager. We're going to be starting with looking at a few different sites. Here is the ClickRain website. ClickRain, a digital marketing and website agency. And we want to capture some extra data on the blog, actually. Blog is a great place to see this. So I'm going to click over to the blog, and we'll just take a look at our first post here. 3 tips to reduce cognitive load on a website. Great. We can already get this title into GA4 because it's also the title up here at the top, the title tag. We can get the URL. That's a standard thing that we capture. But what about here? We've got the category of the blog. It's in the category websites. Great. I can capture that, bring that into GA4. I can capture the date here. Another website that we want to look at is Lemonly, home of the world's best infographics, talented creative agency. And a few things that we could look at here. One would be the search results. So on the work portfolio here, we can look at how many examples we have for Marriott. Well, already GA4 is capturing what that search term is. GA4 is already sending that data of Marriott was the thing that I searched for. But what if I want to look at this 131 Marriott infographics? Well, if I want that number captured, I need to use a page view parameter. Or like on the ClickRain site, if I wanted to capture extra data about a blog post, for example, we saw category and date on the other site. Here, if we want to look at, say, the blog author, capture that. Ella Olson. If we want to capture that data and put that into GA4, well, that is a great example of a page view parameter. And finally, our FitStays website here. This is the place for fitness resorts and health retreats and things like that. Let's just say I want to capture, let's do the category of a certain page. So the data of these listing pages, there are about 100 of them. But if what I wanted to see was, well, what category is this page in? I can manually do that. I can take the URL and say, oh, well, I can map that to, I know what category that's in. I'll just manually do that. I'll do an Excel lookup table. I'll write some formulas. I'll get an intern to do it. What if I just wanted to capture that data that, hey, this is in the fitness resorts category? Well, it'd be a lot easier to just take this from the page and put that into GA4. Or if we want to do something like that search results thing that we saw on the Lemonly site, how about California? Yeah, let's just search for that. Again, I can already capture this. It's already working in GA4 to capture California, the search term, but knowing, hey, we had 22 listings here. That is a special thing that we're going to learn how to do right now. So the setup for how to do this in Tag Manager is pretty straightforward. The actual detail of capturing this is going to look different for every single site on the internet. So I won't be able to tell you exactly how to get that, but I'll tell you the process for how to figure that out. And basically the steps you can take to hopefully come up with it. It will be easier if you know things about CSS selectors. Let me talk to you about what we're looking at here. So to capture, let's just take this data here. First, we need to get that into Google Tag Manager. So make sure you've got Google Tag Manager installed on your site. I think that's a given for most of these tips that we've been talking about. But to capture that, we need to use a variable. So we're going to click over here into variables, and we want to create a new variable. What we're going to do is, under our variable configuration, select a DOM element. Now, the one thing I will warn you about is that the DOM element is subject to breaking. If you leave everything alone on your site, it won't break. It'll work great. It'll work forever. But this requires the code on the back end of your site to not be changing a lot or significantly. If you've got developers that are constantly testing things, making UI changes, changing the CSS, basically the CSS targeting in terms of IDs and classes, this could break for you. If you've got a good relationship with your developers and you know that they'll let you know about changes, if you know when things will be changing on your site, if it's you that are the one that are changing your IDs and your classes, you're probably okay. But just make sure that if your site is changing a whole bunch and you're not confident that those CSS selectors are going to stay the same, you might not want to use DOM element. You might want to use something like a data layer variable, in which case you will definitely need a developer's help, or you will need to be a developer yourself to push some extra data into the data layer. We're not going to go into that. We're going to assume for the purposes of this video that your site is going to be static, or your developers are going to talk to you before they make changes on the site. So to do that, we're saying, yes, DOM element is A-OK. This is what I've done on all of my sites because I have good relationships with developers for the most part. So DOM element is right here. What this says is you can either take the ID or the CSS selector. We're going to talk about both of those. ID, well, in both cases, you need to look at the code of your website. And so the best way to do that is take the thing that you want to look at. In this case, I want to look at 22 listings. So that's this thing here. I want to capture that number. And I'm going to do right-click, inspect, or inspect element. It might be different depending on what your browser is, but right-click, inspect, and I can see here is the code. I see 22 listings. I see I've got a class here. I've got a class here. What I don't see is an ID. If this said ID equals the number of search results, that would make my life super easy because an ID can only show up once on a page. Well, it's only supposed to show up once on a page per the recommendations for CSS. But I don't have that here. Let's say I did. Let's say it was ID equal number of search results listings. My life is easy. I just say, hey, select an ID and element ID equals number of search results listings, and I can click save. And I'm done. That was super easy. We liked that. That was great. Our life is not going to be that easy. Your life may not be that easy. Again, if you're friends with a developer and you want to tell them, hey, could you give me an ID on that thing? Your developer can probably do that pretty easily to say, oh, yep, I can make an ID for you. And you can put that in here. And we're done with the variable section of our process here. But we don't live in that easy world. We have to do it the harder way. And so this is where CSS selectors and CSS targeting comes into play. I am not going to go into all of that on this video. That could be an hour-long video by itself. And to be honest, I'm not the expert. I know just enough to get by, but you may want to check out a video about CSS selectors if you really want to start from the zero and the ground up, learn how to do the expertise of this piece. I will tell you my process is classes work similarly to IDs, but they might show up multiple places on a page. So if I want to make sure I'm capturing just one of them, this color primary class, I think it shows up a few different places here. I can still target that, but I'll have to switch from ID over to CSS selector, and you target classes with a dot. So I can copy this, and do dot color hyphen primary. If that is the only one of those things on this page, I'm golden. My work here is done. But if there are multiple color primaries on this page, I need to add something else to say, oh no, I want the color primary that is in the, let's just say, listing bar result. Well, whatever this class name is, R8PY. This is just a off-the-shelf WordPress theme, so it's got some messy classes, but we're going to take that. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I don't want every color primary. I'm going to put a space here and say, I want the color primary that is in the box, basically, of the class dot listing bar result R8PWY, whatever. I just copied it. So it is dot this class name, dot this class name. That is kind of honing in from, hey, we're targeting this wider class thing here, which is this whole box. We're targeting this wider class, and we're drilling down to just this class within it. That's how CSS selectors work, is the first thing that you put is the wider box, and then you drill down to a smaller box within it, and then a smaller box within it. That is essentially the core of CSS selectors. But like I said, I'm not teaching you CSS selectors today. That can happen on a different video. I would encourage you to look out there at people who are a lot smarter than me, who have done tutorials on things like that, or talk to your developer friends, because this is really their life. They do this every day. So they can help you with CSS selectors as well. I have certainly had to ask my questions to my developer friends. So that is how we targeted that specific, or stay here for now. In this case, it was number of search results. So I would want to name this variable then number of search results, or spell it correctly, search results, and hit save. I already did this, so I'm going to discard changes. What did I call it? Search results number. Okay, great. And yeah, that's the same thing that I typed. So at least I'm consistent. Let's take a look at another one, or actually a few more. One more on this site. I do want to look at, let's just grab Veravia here. And I want to see that category here, wellness spa resort. So I'm going to do a right click and inspect. And what does this say? All right, I've got class equals icon box 1 text. All right, that's great. Again, it's another weird sounding one. How did I target this? Let's look. Well, in this case, I want to call it listing category. So I created a new variable. I selected DOM element variable. And again, I had this icon box 1 text R3R39G. And then I had to find another box that was the wider box to say, okay, I want to take this bigger box that it's in. Where is it? Right here. I want to take this bigger box, grab a class from it, and then call out the smaller box inside of it and grab the text from that smaller box. This is messy because, this was created for this WordPress theme from Theme Forest. Messy classes. Let's just say that most of the time, if this is not a crazy WordPress theme, hopefully those classes will look a lot nicer. Let's take a look at those examples. So here, how to tell stories with interactive infographics. If I want to grab this author name here on the Lemonly site, I'm going to go ahead and inspect. What does this say? Okay, name, span, item prop, name, Ella Olson. Well, this is great. This is straightforward. It's a little bit different in terms of the actual targeting because it's not a class. It is an item prop. So the CSS selection looks a little bit different. But it's only one thing. It's at least less messy. You can see by reading that, oh, we're getting the author from that span that is labeled as an item prop. A little bit less messy. The cleanest one that I've seen is actually on this ClickRain site, where if I wanted to capture this category, I'm going to do inspect, and I see class equals category. as long as that is the only class equals category on this whole page. And I can check that if I do, we'll do a view source, view page source, and find class equals category. Okay, great. There's only one category on the page. It's this thing. That is perfect. So when I go in to look at that in my Google Tag Manager variable, blog category. Oh, that looks so much nicer, doesn't it? I should have started with this one. I do CSS selector and dot category. Isn't that nice and clean? I hope your code is nice and clean like this. I hope you have an ID. If you have an ID, then it is super simple. If it is a class that only shows up once on the page, it is super simple. Just remember the dot for dot category. If it is this weird WordPress site thing, your life gets harder. I tell you what, this is the hardest part of this step if you're not a developer. And so if you're running into trouble with this, leave me a comment, and I try to respond to all of my comments. I would love to help you try to solve this. And if I can't help, I have developer friends that I like to ask. So if you have a question, leave it in the comments. If you can get at this, that's great. If you have developer friends, that's great too. But this is really the hardest part, is how do you basically scrape the text on that page? And you have to look at a little bit of HTML and CSS to do so. Once you've done that, you save your variable. You say save. And now we're back to the easy steps, at least the steps that are going to be universal now that we're through the hard part. We want to say, let's push that thing that we just scraped into GA4. Let's make sure that that info, when I'm looking at the results of a blog page here, that info is showing up when I want to report on my blog pages. I want to see who was the author, or I want to see what was that website, or the blog category. In this case, it was websites. Or let's see the category when I review the page views for all of my listing pages here. Let's get that metadata into Google Analytics. So to do so, I'm just going to go back to my tags here in Tag Manager, and I just want my just standard config tag. This is the regular page view. This is the whole thing that sets up GA4 on your site. We looked at this in our last video for content group, because content group is just another page view parameter. This is the exact same process. In the last video, we called it content_group, and we grabbed our variable. In this case, you want to add those variables you just created and give them a name that follows the same syntax. So in our case, we were looking at, well, this is the category of a listing. So let's go ahead and call it listing_category. And then we want to find our variable that we called listing category, which I did here. And you can tell because it has these squiggles. Or get the search results number. I just call it search results here. I guess that's fine. Grab the variable. If I didn't set up any blog variables for the FitStays site, I did that for Lemonly and ClickRain. But if we did that here in FitStays, it would be the same thing. It would be, say, hey, add row. Let's say it was blog author. You might call it blog_author. And you would say, let me find that variable I just created. I didn't create a variable, so it's not here. But if I did, it would look like this. It would be squiggle, squiggle, blog author, squiggle, squiggle. Or again, blog category. I would find that variable that I had in my name here. I don't have one. I have my search results number. I have my content group. I have phone number, listing category. But I could certainly add one for blog author and category if I wanted to for this site as well. And it would look like this. Blog category. Now that's going to go into GA4 as soon as I hit save here. Well, it's not going to go to GA4 yet. I need to submit this and actually publish that. I'm not going to do that because I have some variables that don't actually exist here. So goodbye, save. We want to submit and hit publish. In this case, I actually made no changes, but you will have made those changes. So you go ahead and click publish there. Now that is technically pushing the data. We'll call it pushing it at GA4, but at the moment, GA4 doesn't know to actually catch that data. And so nothing is happening, nothing useful is happening for you right now within Google Analytics 4. In our next video, which hopefully will be coming out pretty soon, I will be showing you what to do on the GA4 side of things to essentially catch that data that we just threw from Tag Manager to make sure you can get it in your reporting. So right now, we took the steps, again, of we figured out what do we want to track on our pages. Well, I want to track a blog category. I want to track a blog author. I want to track number of search results or a listing category. Then we figured out how to get at that data in the source code here by doing the right-click inspect. Okay, we've got some classes. We've got an item prop here. In this case, we've got a nice simple class. We put that in a variable in Google Tag Manager, like content group last time in our last video, or in this case, listing category search results number. We then took that variable and we put it in our config tag with a new field here, a content group field with taking the data from our variable called content group, a field called listing underscore category that grabs that, and a field called search underscore results that uses that variable that we created. And we published that to Google Tag Manager. We are done with Tag Manager. Next video, we'll get into analytics. We'll see how to use that data on the analytics side, how to pull it into reports, and actually do something useful with it. So stay tuned. That's coming up. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.